Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. The title of my report this afternoon is about student responsibility and teacher responsibility. In the very early stages of learning, most students recognize the value of a common core of lexes that will be essential and clearly in all their interest to learn. Once this basic level of survival class has been achieved, though lexical selection and emphasis is prone to conflicts of interest that are seldom true of grammar. For with the exceptions, most learners perceive the relevance of grammatical structures, whatever their field of interest and reasons for learning for the language. How it is presented is different issue. The same cannot be said of vocabulary, which is much more context specific. Context specific, this is the items that are very essential to understanding of one field of interest may be quite irrelevant to students who are not interested in particular subjects. So that's why the problems found problems for the students. So the problems of the teachers are students. For the students, the teachers often find it difficult to justify time being spent on lexical items. So the teachers cannot command appeal. So this leaves them with uh, an inviable task of constantly seeking the middle ground to satisfy disparate needs of students or sustain students' interest. So here is the solution of the problems. The teacher or the teachers should accept that the students have different needs and also to further accept that they must assume some of the responsibility for defining those needs and the vocabulary that will relevant to those needs. So, in other words, allow the students more autonomy in lexical decision making. Aside that, there are also drawbacks, as the following example illustrate. So, but for the classroom material with no obvious lexical objectives, it can be very sensible approach. So, for suitable and upper intermediate group of students, one might select the following items as being unknown or partial known. So, this is the items or the vocabulary words that are known or unknown for the students. So, some students are very familiar with the common words and others are not, especially to those students who are slow learners. So, here are the words. So, to prevent aware of, to more insatiable, to launch, to land, or to somebody in trouble, to beam, worship, outlook, clamp down, and jail. So this word you can find this in the uh, newspaper text entitled Channel 6 Shock for Mrs. White House. So in terms of frequency, prevent and aware are probably the most useful items to teach, but certain students know this already and may therefore wish to focus on different items. So in classroom, so usually we or the students are prone with the English, or I mean they always encounter that no, that's a simple word or common word, so they might know the definition of that word for prevent and aware. So instead of focusing that, so they are wish to focus on another or different items. So since nothing in the above list stands out meriting special attention, so the teacher could be forgiven for making arbitrary selection or deciding that the text that did not warrant any further attention to lexes. So arbitrary, so like it seems at random instead of following the basic rules, the rules. So here some students may interpret the interpretation of the students the first course of actions, so maybe they might think that it is a waste of time, so give the teacher gives them an activity, so they might think that it is a waste of time. So in the second course of action, so uh, it might also say that it's a denial of their right to learn. So maybe they are hesitant. Oh, yeah. But in the third action would be to supply the students with dictionaries. So here, this is the best, the best way for the students to learn, because here the teacher provides the materials used, especially in defining extraordinary words or uncommon words. So they should first know how to use them. So with dictionaries, then set them a time limit and allow them to concentrate on any other words they wish to learn. So the teacher, meanwhile, can focus on the word prevent and aware for those students who do not know the items, and then monitor the other students, offering help and guidance where necessary. So here, so if the teachers was given an activity for the students, so by giving this activity, so the teacher might learn on how, which of the student needs help and also guidance. So by giving a simple task. So here, an anarchic approach to teaching, or here you can find that here there is no clear check on student understanding. So this is the anarchic approach to teaching, and that their students are likely to accumulate pages of useless vocabulary. In other words, an abdication of responsibility. So although you know this approach was used by the students, so there are also criticisms do have some validity, but weighed against them are two important approach. So according to the criticism to the people who criticize, so their first approach is there is motivation derived from the learning what wants to learn. Then second, allowing the students to have the responsibility for making decisions with other guidance may help to engender discrimination on their part, recognize what is useful. So here, in the second approach of the criticism, the students have responsibility for making decisions. With teachers' guidance here, this is much better to let the students know further on what part of the which part of the approach are useful. Then the extent of above approach will also depend on the type of students and the homogeneity of the group in terms of lexical needs. So in order for the teacher to know their students' needs, so the teacher needs to have an activity or giving them a seat work or any that can be developed or can be useful for the benefits of the students. So this is also a means of understanding for the students' needs, and also to discover their attitudes or which part of their they lack, which parts of their aspect of learning they are lacking. So the teacher has a great responsibility in giving support and guidance to the student. Here are the given activity. Here are the example of given activity to the students. So the title is Channel 6, Shock for Mrs. Whitehouse. So here we can see based on the text that the meaning of the vocabulary is dependent or is depend on the context of the sentence or the story. So here, so the prevent is very useful. So this is the comment of the students. So from the vocabulary or the item prevent, it is very useful. It must be because I already know. So here aware. So some students didn't know this word, but um, maybe it is useful. And here the word jail, so some of them didn't know the word jail or gaul. So gaul, this is the another term for jail. So some students didn't know this word, but for them it's necessary as long as they know that they know the word prison. So here they appointed that the gaol might be useful receptively for this level of students, as it appears frequently in newspaper text. So the word beam, so for them it is a technological word, so it may become more important in the future. So that's why they choose to learn it. So they appointed also for a banker with no specific interest in technology. Thus item probably was not useful. So here the word launch, this word will be useful because some of them will say that it is used in marketing, and also they want to learn them all because they are useful. So this that's the teacher suggested to student that their approach might interfere with that learning or more useful items. So also in the word more, in the more word more, so there they can recognize the word more used in boats. So this word will be useful. So in students mind, more is this word used for both. So for the teacher it is yes. So the student would say, in that case I don't want to learn it. So maybe some of the students, so because some words are very common to them, so they can also learn it based on the usage it in the sentence. So they might say that they know the meaning of the word. So um, this type of activity can be revealing for the teacher as a means of understanding his students' needs and attitudes towards learning. So clearly, the students must be involved in the decisions about items to be learned. But in the comments above, it is very clear that the students need guidance, and that the teacher must not only strive to discover their needs but must also assume some responsibility for selection. So as we can see, the comments or the comments of some of the past students who were answering the definition of the items, so based on their learning. So um, some of them are not quite familiar with that word, so they might say that they are right. But this kind of activity is very useful. So the teacher, through this activity, so the teacher would say that which now the teacher discover the parts of the students where they needed most, and also part of their attitude. So that would be all. Thank you.